Hello all, welcome to the week 8 lecture. Together we are going to go through the Code of Ethics enforcement procedure so you all are able to complete the discussion board and the in-class activities this week. Looking at our objectives, we have create a formal complaint based on a clinical scenario that could be experienced as an occupational therapist. Describe the enforcement procedures for the Occupational Therapy Code of Ethics, and identify examples of breaking the Code of Ethics. So all of these objectives should be able to be completed by the end of week 8. The OT Code of Ethics is updated and reviewed every 5 years, meaning that these enforcement procedures are written for the most recent 2020 Code of Ethics. The purpose of these enforcement procedures is to help ensure compliance with the Code of Ethics and ensure that it is fair to all individuals who may be involved with an ethics complaint. AOTA members should first pursue other corrective steps within the relevant institution or setting and discuss ethical concerns directly with persons perceived to be violating the code before resorting to AOTA's ethical or ethics complaint process. So in English, it's important that individuals talk to their employees or the individual breaking the code before taking it to the higher level. When looking into the population that should be considering these procedures, we have anyone who are or were AOTA members at the time of the conduct in question. As you can imagine, confidentiality is very important. This is a very sensitive topic for a lot of people, and confidentiality is incredibly important for everyone involved in the process. It is required that the individuals involved in the enforcement process refrain from any communication relating to the complaint other than those directly involved in the process. These same rules of confidentiality apply to the complainants, which are the individuals who file a complaint, the respondents who are subject of a complaint, their attorneys, and witnesses involved with the ethics investigatory process. If individuals do not follow confidentiality rules, they do risk losing their license and certifications. So we will go into detail about each step, but in total, there are 4 major steps in the enforcement process. Step 1 is filing a complaint. Step 2 is ethics commission review, investigation and decision. Step 3 is the appeals process, and the 4th step is reports, records, and publications. Just so we're all on the same page for terminology, a complaint is a report of an alleged violation of the code against a member of AOTA filed in accordance with the AOTA procedures as described in this document, referring to the enforcement procedures. Complaints may be made by an individual, group, or entity within or outside the association, meaning the ethics committee itself may initiate a complaint. All complaints are submitted to the ethics office using a formal statement of complaint form, which includes the complainant's full name, their contact information, the respondent's full name and contact information if available, alleged violations of standards of conduct from the code, signatures, and supporting documentation. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into this, and the entire form is reviewed by the ethics office staff. The next step is the ethics commission review, investigation, and decision. Within 60 calendar days of receiving a complaint, the ethics committee will review the complaint to decide whether it warrants further discussion and investigation. This means that they can dismiss a complaint at any time for jurisdiction if maybe there was no code violation and if there is insufficient evidence. If the complaint is sufficient, the staff will appoint individuals on the team to investigate and then notify the respondent and compliant that the investigation is being conducted. An interesting rule to note is that the ethics committee can obtain evidence directly from third parties without the permission from the complainant or respondent. So an example of this is maybe if there was another witness to the violation, they may be able to present some more evidence. The investigation will be completed within 90 calendar days, and the decision will either be non-disciplinary actions or disciplinary actions, which could either be private or publicly reported. Part of your reading this week will be to read the enforcement procedures, so please be reminded that this is just a general overview of the document, and to really understand this process, you need to take the time to go through and read it closely. This is just a general overview. All right, so the third step of the enforcement procedure process is the appeals process. This is the opportunity for respondents to present evidence and refute the decision made by the ethics committee. A panel consisting of an AOTA board member, an OT practitioner, and a public member may consider newly available evidence that is directly related to the original complaint. So, pardon me, I got a notification about my battery. New information can be provided at this time. Within 15 calendar days after receiving the letter of appeal, if no hearing was granted, the panel will notify the association executive director of its decision in writing. So at this time, the panel decision is final. I'm going to keep this section extra brief, but step 4 is the reports, record, and publications. The investigative case files will include the complaint and any documentation that the committee relied on during the investigation. So this is really just making sure that all of the information is stored and recorded. All right, now my favorite part about this slide is actually seeing real examples of things that could happen. So looking at some examples of violations. So first we have sharing client information without their consent. Of course, we know that it is important to respect a client's consent, and confidentiality is incredibly important in our practice. And this rule is here because we want to protect the information of our client. Moving on to recommending products or services to clients in which the therapist has a financial interest. Everything that we should do in practice should be to benefit the client. So, we make money off of this. This is our profession. This is our job. But what we should be doing should not be for our own financial gain. It should be for the client's needs. Next, we have providing treatment without obtaining proper informed consent. So just like our first bullet, it's important to respect consent and confidentiality, and understanding the goals of our client and what they want through treatment. Then we have providing services outside of one's area of competence. I can't even understand why someone would want to do this, but do not perform interventions or practice that you are not qualified to do. This is incredibly dangerous for the patient, and you will absolutely lose your license. Next, we have developing inappropriate personal relationships with clients. Always keep your relationships professional, and we're going to have a case study to kind of look at this. And then our last two are probably some of our most common violations we may see. We have billing for services that were not provided, and documenting inaccurate information in client records. So don't just bill for services that are maybe more expensive. I think a lot of therapy practices may encourage some of their therapists to do this, and if that's the case, consider reporting that facility. And then of course, pay attention to your documentation. It's incredibly important for your progress as well as insurance purposes. All right, moving on to our cases. We have two cases that I would like you guys to read. I'll read them out loud myself. During a lunch break, Jane is having a conversation with her close friend Lisa, who is not associated with the healthcare profession. Jane starts discussing the challenges she faces with some of her clients, including Sarah. She mentions specific details about Sarah's case, such as the nature of her injury, progress in therapy, and struggles Sarah is facing at home. Lisa knows someone in the same community as Sarah and is intrigued by the story, shares the detail with her acquaintance. Eventually, this information reaches Sarah's family, who were shocked and upset that such private information about Sarah's condition has been disclosed without their consent. Please pause this video and take a second to think about it yourself, and then play the video again. We'll talk about some of the issues here. So obviously we have a major breach in confidentiality. So Jane violated these code of ethics by discussing very specific details about her client. We also have the informed consent issues. So Jane failed to obtain consent from Sarah about discussing this case externally, which you just shouldn't do even with consent. Just keep your information private. It's probably safer that way for your license and of course the comfort of the patient. And then we also have professional boundaries. So Jane crossed professional boundaries by sharing this confident information with a personal friend. So lots of issues with this case, as you can imagine, but also probably very common. People talking about their work life. It's different for us as healthcare professionals. All right, moving on to our case 2. Let's see. Over the past few months, Alex, the OT, has been providing occupational therapy services to a patient named Taylor, who suffered a spinal cord injury in a car accident. As therapy sessions progress, Alex and Taylor develop a close bond. Alex begins to share personal details about their life outside of work, and Taylor reciprocates by sharing personal experiences and feelings. Over time, the therapeutic relationship starts to blur, and Alex and Taylor begin communicating outside of scheduled therapy sessions through personal phone calls and social media. Alex starts making exceptions to professional boundaries, such as meeting for coffee outside of the hospital setting. The nature of their interactions become increasingly personal, and both Alex and Taylor start to view each other more as friends than as therapist and client. Once again, please pause the video and think about your own opinions with this case, what you think maybe some of the violations are. All right, so of course we have some boundary violations here. Alex has crossed these professional boundaries by forming a very close personal relationship with their client. It's important to maintain these clear professional boundaries to ensure that their therapeutic relationship is appropriate and avoiding all conflicts of interest. The next we have is exploitation of the therapeutic relationship. So the development of a personal relationship between therapist and, in this case, Taylor, may exploit the vulnerability of the client. So it is, in a way, kind of a power dynamic that is, very inappropriate and not professional at all. And then I kind of touched on it already, but of course, conflict of interest. So the personal relationship between Alex and Taylor creates a conflict of interest, and their interactions outside of therapy can impact the effectiveness of these therapy services. We will work on some more case studies in class about different, violations, as well as filling out our own complaint form about a made-up scenario that you and a partner will think of. So please prepare for that. I hope that you find time to complete your readings. It's very important. This is going to potentially save you one day with keeping your license, and I hope you found it as interesting as I do. My references are on the next slide, and I will see you in class. Bye. Thank you.